Hey everybody, welcome to this live webinar on the Bitcoin price action. I have seen that Bitcoin and is a little bit boring in the last week, and a lot of market participants want to position themselves for trending moves while actually Bitcoin is in a range. So we're going to take a look at what needs to be done for Bitcoin for maybe a move up or a move down, but I'm leaning a little bit more to a move up because after big shakeouts, often shorts pile in and we can get a nice short squeeze. But more on that later. I want to mention that this video is sponsored by crypto.com. And crypto.com is the only exchange that allows you to trade more than 200 pairs with up to 10x leverage, get access to more than 40 quarterly futures and perpetual contracts, and you can purchase new listed tokens at up to 50% off. Find all the information right at the description of the video and earn extra $50 USD worth of CRO using the link below. So let's take a look at Bitcoin. And in front of me, I have the 4-hour chart of Bitcoin USD on Coinbase. And I have the new Birb Pro on the chart. And I am mostly looking here at this line over here, which is the 4-hour trend trailer. And as you can see, if we zoom in, that level is around 49,150, and Bitcoin hasn't really broken above that. So a trailer can be used for some way of defining the trends. And if a trailer breaks, the trend might reverse, or the trend just goes in the opposite direction. So if we combine that information a little bit with what's more in the charts, we can identify levels where we could say that the trend is broken, in this case the downtrend, and price might go into an uptrend. So we see that level over here at 49,150. I also identified a resistance over here at 49,500, which I think is you can consider that as the middle of the range. So some would draw a line like this, that it's still in a downtrend. Also that it's having some upward resistance, but personally I like to use horizontal resistances more. And combining that trailer here and combining that information that this is also a resistance in the chart, I think if price finally can get above here, people will start to jump in slowly, especially if the traders who trade these trend lines also see that the trend line is broken or that market structure is broken. So as I see in the comments, I agree, the downtrend definitely hasn't broken yet, especially if you look at market structure, it hasn't broken, but there are often more ways to look at that downtrend and define a downtrend. So you could also use moving averages or a trailer or trend lines. But for now, it hasn't been broken. So we want to see those signs first that it can get above that 49,500 level, I think. But I think the first signs are actually quite good here. That the idea here is that Bitcoin is holding the lows. You can see that over here, this level is acting as support. And the question then is, like, if this is really acting as support, like, where can you see this going? I see a comment that for the downtrend we to be broken, we have to close above 53,000. Well, the question always is like, what time frame are you trading? I'm looking here at the 4-hour, and I think if a move like this, where it gets above that resistance level, for sure it could go all the way up to that 53,000 level. And in some definitions of the downtrend, that doesn't mean like that the downtrend could still be untagged on a daily level, but maybe on a 4-hour or a 1-hour level, you're missing out on an opportunity. So if price makes a move like this, you could probably play a lower time frame trend like the 1-hour or the 4-hour, and still be in a higher time frame downtrend. And that's basically what I'm watching now. Like, if we zoom out a little bit, and I'm going to use my moving average template here, and we go to a daily chart, and let's remove these lines here, you can see that price is moving below these moving averages. And often when price deviates quite far and you see these liquidations happening, price tends to mean revert. It tends to move back to these moving averages. And as you can see, these moving averages are catching up with price. So over here, that green line is the 10 moving average. But often price also retraces towards the 20 EMA or towards the 55 EMA, for example. So that hasn't happened. So I think what I want to see is at least some mean reversion. And I think on the other side of this trade are lots of shorts that have been trying to short the lows without any breakthrough. And the great thing about that is that we finally see some spot bidding come back in. So I also want to show that too. That was a little bit different in, and I think we have to pick let's pick a 15-minute chart here. If you look, for example, at these aggregated CVDs, I think the first time since that real big shakeout on 4th of December, we see that there is some spot bid coming back here. Because before that, what we saw was that it was mostly futures closing and actually shorts closing that made price move up. But this move up was finally on more spot interest. So that's really interesting. So for this case, that there is a slight change in behavior in the market in which Bitcoin is actually acting currently. So there might be signs for a trend change too, but price really has to pick up on that, and there really has to be some follow through on this spot buying. So hopefully it can. Hopefully we see more moves like this where spot is more leading than all these futures, and maybe futures keep shorting, which would actually build a case for a further short squeeze upwards. So for now, because the trend is still down on a daily chart, a lot of people got hurt here. I consider this as a daily downtrend, and every up move, if we zoom in and add back these resistances, isn't a real break of that downtrend. Price on a higher time frame really needs to get above all these levels to put in a longer term trend. So it's not super like the ultimate reversal sign. There has to be a case for that first. So you have to consider this price level by price level. I think the idea is for now to hopefully see those shorts being squeezed out and at least play some mean reversion. But the reaction is quite muted. That's why Bitcoin is ranging, or might not even be called ranging because we only tap the top of the range once, but it's mostly holding these lows here. But there are some arguments also for a further short squeeze if Bitcoin can hold here. So if we zoom in a little bit more and go to that 1 hour time frame, you can see that over here, Bitcoin is slowly trying to make a 1 hour uptrend. It's actually holding above this support level, and any trend on a lower time frame is a bit noisy, but can be considered as up. So if this trend can develop further, we'll see those levels break. And I think another argument for that short squeeze is if we look at these liquidation level estimates here, is that above price here currently there are quite some short liquidations that are quite dense next to each other. So if price can really push through, probably we'll see some quick movements over here. But as you can see over here, are some longs also piled in after the FOMC meeting yesterday. So it's a little bit into balance, and that's where I would rather wait for some confirmation that this level over here breaks before going in. That's the funny thing about Bitcoin now. It's mostly lower time frame price action, and I think some scalpers even don't like this. You can trade the lower time frames and you can trade this level by level, but I don't think it's a smart move to position yourself with a lot of capital for bigger moves. So as always, if you don't know how to play lower time frames, please don't. It can only hurt your portfolio. And if you want to position for longer term, there might be better options in the future when everything is a lot more clear. So I think this is a good remark from Roy. From a point of on-chain, we can say this dump was primarily from retail and smaller addresses selling. So I did an analysis on Tuesday with my friend Bruce, and we talked about an article, a post-mortem article on Bitcoin, and actually this what led to this bigger drop. And in that article, we also discussed that on-chain case where a lot of smaller addresses bought Bitcoin here, and then Bitcoin dumped, and then they capitulated here. So it was smaller addresses like shorter term holders who made this move possible and were shaken out, and longer term longer term holders weren't really shaken out here. So it's a good point. But my problem always is with some of these on-chain indicators is that they can stay bullish for really long while the market just keeps going down. And you could use them as information, but I think you should always use some kind of trend indication here, like I do with the moving averages or like I do with the Birb Pro. So you can see if the trend is being broken, and if you can spot that with these tools, that's where you can add that on-chain information and add that bullishness from there, and also add a bullish signal in your chart. So it's about finding that confluence between the information presented to you and then acting on it and pulling the trigger on that. So that was that's also for longer term, that's how I act on that. There is a question from Matt about this Birb Pro. Do you change the high time frame governor resolution every time you switch a chart time frame to fit the current chart? So what I do with the Burbicator Pro is that I have a few templates. So you can easily make a template in TradingView and access that with these if they're starred, if they are added to favorites, you can easily access them. So what you can do is pick a few templates, and if you know these templates and you know the settings, you can act on that. So currently this one isn't good for the 1 day time frame because it has a 4-hour governor. I think this one is actually better because I'm now on a daily chart and I use a daily governor. Could also be a 3-day in this case. So what I do is I make templates for my time frame of analysis, or if I switch to another time frame, I switch to another governor. But I rather use these templates because you can easily use these templates and also set, if you make a template, you can set it to an interval. So that's also what I still should be doing here, is maybe make a template for the 1 hour and the 4 hour. So you can just click it and go towards that interval. So for example, I have a scalper version. And I can click on a scalper and it will switch directly to the 1 minute chart. And then I can use that scalper on this time frame. And that makes it really easy to directly go into the time frame you're watching and have the settings for that time frame by just clicking one template. So that's really nice, and I want to advise that you should be doing that too. So that way you don't have to change it manually. You just have your strategies prepared and you can watch that time frame with that strategy. So there is a remark, you were bearish some time ago. Well, that's actually still true. Like if I'm still analyzing this chart, like as I mentioned, on a higher time frame, the trend is absolutely down. So I mentioned that Bitcoin is still in a higher time frame downtrend. That doesn't mean that I can play longs. I could still play longs as shorter term moves, and I can still play longs inside that downtrend. You can make money on moves like this if you know them and know how to play them. So I'm never really vocal on that I'm super bearish or super bullish. It's more of a risk management, and it's more of a way of looking at your strategies and knowing which one to deploy. So, but that being said, yes, I think some would consider my positioning quite bearish, as in I almost am fully in stablecoins and not exposed to the market as it is. So I want to see some higher time frame reversals for that happening first. And this move I just discussed with you as the short squeeze is more of a trade, just a trade, not longer term positioning. And then the remark, so you're saying that the on-chain has a lot of lag. Yes, it probably is. Well, the funny thing is that I don't consider like on-chain as one data source. Like on-chain has a lot of different indicators, and you have to put these indicators in a context, and you have to combine all these indicators to get a view. And for example, if you see accumulation in on-chain data, the problem is that the selling pressure can keep continuing, and people can continue actually buying and accumulating. And the question is, when does that end? Like, price could go down, and people could still accumulate from these on-chain indicators, but that doesn't mean that price directly goes up. So in some way, on-chain should be leading. It's more about like what signal would you actually consider as a real signal. And that's, I think, the problem with on-chains is that it's more of almost a fundamental analysis, like what's happening, and it's more longer term. In that case, if you pick longer term indicators like direct in and outflows to a market or from certain wallets, is probably lower time frame, or could be leading on a lower time frame. But that makes it really hard to incorporate that in your analysis. So I am aware of these on-chain charts often, but I don't really act on that if I don't see it represented in the chart. So you can have a lot of information on the market, but if you don't see a certain trigger in your chart and in the price action, I think you shouldn't act on that. So I think that's how I view and act on-chain. Anyway, I think I already mentioned everything I wanted to show you on Bitcoin. But to summarize, and let's go back to the initial view I presented over here, is that Bitcoin is still in this range. It is actually quite close to printing like that signal here to get above that 49,500 level, which in my opinion is a good level to pull a trigger on a trade. But that said, Bitcoin is still in a high time frame downtrend, so don't overwhelm your stay, and be wary of trend continuation to the downside. So I think the message is be aware of the higher time frame trends, be also aware of the lower time frame trends, and they might not always be in the same direction, but be aware of them in your risk management and in how you handle your trades. So thank you for watching this webinar on what's happening on Bitcoin. For now, sit on your hands and see if we can get that signal. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the Birb nest.